Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another live stream. So I have to apologize, I totally fudged up on the countdown timer there and playing in my software on the back end that you guys can't see. I accidentally clicked a button that inadvertently reset the countdown timer, so sorry, that's what you get for having a rookie here. So tonight, while everyone's kind of joining up, I wanted to talk about something that kind of bothers me about the industry that you see a lot more on YouTube, because obviously when you're on the internet, people feel a lot more bold and they're just a lot more forward about it. And it's kind of the negative, nitpicky armchair operator type stuff. Believe it or not, so if you're new to the industry or thinking about getting into the industry, you've probably noticed in the comment section of YouTube, it's all over the place, guys that have an opinion on how you should be operating the equipment better. And it's generally in a pretty negative way. Generally, it has to do with you being a terrible operator and how much better they could do it. So it happens all the time on YouTube, but it's important that you understand, as someone that might be getting into the industry or someone that's brand new to the industry, that actually happens on job sites too. It's just not as prevalent as it is in the comments on YouTube. But I did want to kind of talk about an example. I've had it happen a couple times now on some videos. I had one specifically today that happened. And it's one of those things where I just kind of want to encourage everyone that you need to be confident in your own abilities and don't let your opinion come from other people. In fact, here you go, some free life advice, because this applies to life in general. Don't worry about what other people say about your abilities and your talents and your skills. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. In fact, in the grand scheme of things, you have one person you need to impress on that job site, and that's your foreman. Excuse me. As long as your foreman's happy with your performance, who cares what any other operator has to say, in all honesty? The foreman's got you in the position he's got you in because you earned that seat. And so if someone says something to you, yeah, it's fine to get pissed off. It's fine to get a little irritated for a while. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And so that's, kind of what happened today is, yeah, it irked me a little bit that someone was kind of dogging on me. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I know what my abilities are as an operator. I'm confident in my skills. And so it really doesn't matter that someone had a chip on their shoulder and they needed to talk about it for the day. So that's what I wanted to say to the new operators. To existing operators, any of you guys that are watching this, if you find yourself being that guy, it's not helpful. I mean, at the end of the day, part of the reason this industry struggles so hard with getting new people into the industry is because traditionally this was an industry where, it was a generational thing. My grandfather and my dad and now me, we've all been in the excavating industry, and that's my history. That used to be the norm. And for me, that is not the case. But you're finding that more and more in this industry, that's not the norm. Most people are coming into this industry fresh and green. They don't have any family members that have been in the trades. It's literally them venturing out into this new uncharted territory for their family. And so what happens on the job site is a lot of times just guys have the assumption that these new guys have some sort of foundational knowledge that they should be able to build off of. And then when they don't have that foundational knowledge, the new guys get treated like crap because you're just an idiot and you obviously don't know anything. What do you expect? The guys coming into the industry green aren't going to know anything. So just overall, there needs to be more grace in the industry. And if you are an existing operator, I would really highly encourage you to kind of check yourself. I know it can be frustrating working with new guys, especially, the arrogant ones. But let's face it, we were all young, cocky, arrogant guys at one point in time. So all that to say, extend some grace, cut guys some slack, and you don't need to be dogging on everybody all the time. It's not helpful. It doesn't benefit anyone. And at the end of the day, it kind of makes you look like an a-hole. So anyway, let me see who's in here. So we got Nick. What's going on, man? James, good to see you. And Danny, how's it going, guys? Hope you guys are having a good evening. It's good to see you guys back. I really appreciate you guys showing up for pretty much every single one of these. So you guys got to help me. That was my pre-warm up, like, chit chat. Now you guys got to carry me with some questions or something. So somebody start popping off with some questions. James, you getting any more snow? We were supposed to get they started saying we were going to get 3 to 6. Then they dropped it down to 2 to 4. And then today they gave us about an inch, and then they've dropped it to we're only going to get about an inch. So we have yet to get our real first snowstorm. So for the guys who are wanting me to do snow removal videos, even if I wanted to, I still can't because we still don't have any real snow. So Danny, 100%, we all have to learn. And the only, we can either do it easy by everyone kind of pitching in and helping out to train the new guys, or we can do it the difficult way where, everyone's an a-hole and the guy has to just figure it out and it takes him 3 times as long. So that's good. It's slowed down for you there, James. Where are you at, Nick? So 15 to 20 centimeters. I deal in freedom units because I am from the United States of America. And so I don't know how many inches 15 to 20 cents. See, I at least know to call it cents instead of centimeters. But I have no idea what that translates into inches. Gotcha. So you've got a little while before you get something, James. 4 to 5 inches. Okay. All right. So that's a decent little pop of snow. Yeah. So I think our worst snowstorm we've had this year has only dumped about 2.5 to 3 inches on us. Now you go just east of here when you start getting into Toronto and stuff like that, and they've gotten it pretty hard. But for whatever reason, where I'm at in Michigan, the southern part of Michigan, it's just kind of past us all over. So I know we are ignorant yet very arrogant Americans. So I 100% feel for you, Nick. I'm sorry you have to put up with us, and that you have to put up with us not only in general on the world scale, but where you're like rowdy, obnoxious neighbor downstairs. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I'm sure these last 4 years have been a little bit of a riot for you. So John, trying to get into the industry, but nobody will give you a chance. What has your approach been? And just so you guys are aware how this whole thing works. From the moment a word leaves my lips, it takes about 20 seconds to get to you. Then you respond, and then it's another 20 seconds by the time I see it and I'm able to respond. So that being said, that's why these conversations I bounce all over in them. So anyway, John, coming back to your question, let me ask you this. What kind of companies have you been trying to get in the door with, and what part of the country are you in? So what I would say while I'm kind of waiting for your response, my biggest piece of advice is if you can find a smaller company that does mostly residential work, it's going to be a lot slower pace of work, so they are going to be more willing to work with a new guy getting into the industry. And because it's a smaller company, generally you're going to deal with, if you're not dealing directly with the owner, you're going to at least be dealing with the foreman that is directly underneath you. Excuse me. That's the one thing about doing these right after dinner is you get those after dinner burps where, those good digestion burps. Sorry. And ladies, I'm sorry, I am happily married. But anyway, if you hire in with one of those companies, you're going to be dealing with the foreman who works directly underneath the boss or the boss himself, and you're going to get seat time way quicker. You're going to get experience right off the bat. So that's kind of what I would tell you to look for there. What's up, Jay? How are you, sir? Thanks for coming out, man. Yeah, Danny, I'm in the same boat. They keep promising all of this great snow, and every time it gets close, they're like, oh, just kidding. We're going to back it down to maybe you'll get an inch. Today's really was a disappointment. So it's been long enough since we've gotten a real snow that I was like, okay, 3 to 6 inches. We'll get a decent little snow. I have a badass snowblower, by the way. I went online specifically. I've got a 300-foot long driveway, and it's got a pretty steep incline at one point. So when we moved into this house, I pulled the man card, and I told my wife, look, I will skimp on everything else in the house. We can go cheap. But when it comes to my snowblower, I want to get a mama beast of a snowblower. And so I went out and got the it's called the Storm Tracker. And it has tracks. My snowblower has tracks, and it's a high track like a cat dozer. And so every time we get one of these big snows, I don't get excited when there's a bunch of them. But if I get one big snow a year that I can pull my snowblower out and I can buff those tracks, make them look really nice, put a little tire shine on them, and then go crazy for one snowstorm, like, I'm excited about it. And that's what this one was. It was like 3 to 6 inches. Okay, I can pull out my snowblower with my tracks, and I can go to town. Then we get an inch, and then they come back and they're like, yeah, you're gonna get an inch or so. I think that's even how they worded it in the weather app, was like an inch or two, or an inch or so. Like, it was totally pathetic the way they backed it down, so it was very disappointing. So yeah, unfortunate. Danny, I agree. You're generally always going to have a better experience as a new guy getting into the industry with a smaller company. So I'll talk about my background again. I know you guys are probably sick of it, those who come to every one of these, but when I was with Dan's Excavating, which was the big contractor I was with, there was not a lot of training time. There was not a grace period. There was no break-in period. I hit the first year that I hired in, the first project I did with these guys, they shut down one of the major highways in this area. They shut down an 11-mile stretch, both directions, and they had 6 or 7 months to totally redo it, bridges and all. And so, yeah, you can get in with the bigger companies, but it is significantly harder. The stakes are significantly higher. So I would, like Danny said, it's generally always going to be a better experience with a smaller company. So oh, so you're down in Texas. That's my old stomping ground. So I'm originally from Austin. I will say rock quarries, I don't want to speak too much just because I don't have any experience with quarries myself, but just kind of speaking from general industry knowledge, I would think your quarries are going to be a little more difficult because of the fact that they are so safety oriented. They're generally going to want you to have your OSHA 30 hour. They're going to want you to have mine safety. I can't remember what that class is called specifically, but there is a class specific to mine and quarry safety. Generally, they want you to have that out of the way already. So there's all these prerequisites that those companies are going to try to get you to have, or they want you to have at least. And then, most of the time, because you are generally working with really, really large machines, they mostly want you to have at least some experience or seat time, because it's not like you're jumping in like a 740 off-road dump, which, don't get me wrong, it's a big machine, but when you compare that to some of like the Cat 777 dump trucks that are just the size of a house, they're going to be a little more wary to put you in the seat of one of those. So as much as you hate to hear it, I would really highly recommend you try out some smaller companies first, just to get some seat time and under your belt. Nick, totally agree. My tracks, like, I don't care. Anything else, I will sell. If we have to make ends meet, I will sell anything else. But when it comes to that Storm Tracker, my Storm Tracker snowblower, I can't give up those tracks. I'm not going back to tires. I'm sorry. James, 100% right. Like, there's few other jobs I can think of in the world that you can be so off and then just go, meh, it was the weather. It's not my fault. Yeah, John, the problem is everything you've mentioned, they're just small machines, skid steers, backhoes, tractors. That's just small stuff. And those quarries, so the quarries and mines are some of the areas where regulations have really, really clamped down on those guys. I know it's really difficult. It's difficult to the point that I can't get in there to film. The only way I could probably get in there to film is if I was going to do some commercial work for them. So if I went in to film something specifically for them for a commercial for their website or for TV or online, that's about the only way I'd be able to get in there. They do not allow people to just come through. There is a quarry in the northern part of Michigan that we were going to try to go through, and the way I was able to finagle it before COVID destroyed our opportunity is my kids are homeschooled, and so we were going to do a homeschool trip, which they're like, oh, okay, if you meet the criteria and you have enough people in your group, you can do a homeschool tour. And I was like, I'll just happen to bring my camera gear at the same time. Unfortunately, COVID destroyed that, but yeah, that was the only way I was going to get into that pit. So unfortunately, that's just part of the industry. Pipelines are the same way. I went and did some pipeline recording over the summer. and I was able to get some angles where they were right up next to the road, but anything that was back off of the road, I try to go about it the ethical way instead of sneaking onto job sites. I try to be pretty forward with the foreman, and I did track down a couple different foremen at a couple different spots on this pipeline, and all of them, in their defense, they were super professional. They were protecting their client, the gas company, but all two or three that I think I asked actually said that I would have to get a hold of the power company here in town and go through them in order to gain access to the site. So unfortunately, that's, there's just certain industries within our industry that really get hammered, not only by OSHA and the safety regulations, but they also get hammered by public relations. So the second I show up with my camera gear, especially on a pipeline project, you really have to be careful how you approach guys, because you can very quickly get yourself shoved out of a job site because they think you're trying to bring negative press on the pipelines. So just unfortunate part of the industry. So, Danny, what specifically would you like to know about grades? Are we talking like going more in depth on how to regrade stakes and translate them into the hole? Are you talking about like doing slope work? I'm all for doing another video by all means, but flush that one out for me just a little bit more so that I know specifically what you're looking for, and I am more than happy to do another video on grades. In all honesty, that I did that one pretty early on in my YouTube career, so I was still getting comfortable on the camera and still figuring out how to kind of flow my videos, so I think I could do a much better job on the next one. But yeah, definitely let me know what you're looking for. Yeah, James is 100% right. And that's something I preach on my channel all the time. Don't be afraid to go in as a laborer. In fact, I would encourage you to go in as a laborer just because you're going to get some really valuable experience and some valuable knowledge being on the end of a shovel. It could be too that you end up running a water wagon or something like that. You may think of it as an unglamorous, boring, terrible job, but at the same time, use that time to soak up the knowledge and pay attention to what other operators are doing. It's a lot easier to do that when you're in the seat of something like a water wagon or a roller than it is when you're on a dozer or running an excavator where your focus is, laser beam right in front of you. I spent a fair amount of time on a roller and a water wagon, both, when I first got into Dan's, which is the big company I worked for. And believe it or not, it was one of those things where at first I was like, man, I got to get stuck on a roller. But really what happens is, as soon as I would do my roll pattern, I'd kick back and I'd watch the dozer operator throw down stone. And to be able to sit there and be able to focus on that, and then look over here and here's the grader doing finish passes, and I'm watching his technique and how he's rolling the material from high side to low side and figuring out how he's calculating where his next move is going to be. That's just really valuable experience, and you don't get that if you just go plop down in the seat of a dozer and spend your first 2 weeks scrambling to try to figure out what's going on. Or in the quarry situation, if you're driving a 777 or one of those massive quarry trucks, there ain't a whole lot of downtime that you can sit. I mean, the downtime you have in one of those trucks is when you are being loaded and you get about 3 passes. So you're talking maybe 2 minutes of downtime before you got to be back on the road and you're hauling full bore. So yeah, I would highly recommend you start small, be okay being a laborer, even if it's for a year or so, and get some experience that way. James, so to kind of go way back, before I was like full bore construction, I was actually a laborer on a landscape crew and did that. Got a little bit of skid steer time and a little bit of machine time, but yeah, I was mostly a laborer. And then when I finally broke into the actual dirt world, I hired in for a residential company digging basements, and I was absolutely a laborer. For my first day on the job, I was down in a hole hooking up a sewer main and a water line, and running the leads into the house. So sewer main, not a sewer main, a sewer lead and a water line, taking them into a basement. And I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never been around that stuff. So I was down in the trench with another guy, and he showed me how to slap them together. And you know, what we were looking for grade and how to keep grade. And like, you start learning the basics right off the bat as a laborer. I had no idea what a grade rod is and how a laser interfaced with it and what I was supposed to be doing. Like, that was all new information. My first 2 weeks on the job as a laborer were like drinking from a fire hydrant with the amount of knowledge that I was getting. So that's why you see me preach it so much, is because I went through that process and it was 100% worth it. That's how I'm able to make the videos that I'm able to make. That's how I'm able to talk about so many diverse subjects, is because I spent the time on the end of the shovel, and then I've worked on these larger job sites where you really get the experience with true production and high pressure deadlines and stuff like that. So yeah, being able to run the gamut, it's hard to beat that kind of experience. So Danny, let me say this. It is the dead of winter here right now, and I am originally from Texas, so I don't fare well in the snow and the cold. So when I get some warmer weather, I will 100% do a little bit better video on translating from grade stakes. What I'll try to do is go out and set a couple different hubs with a couple different elevations, and then with the grade rod and grade stake, go out and pretend like we're digging a hole. And we'll go through the math to go up and down the grade rod. That being said, if you've got any questions before I'm able to do that video, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Which that's these little cards that are playing down here. I should make one of those that's got my email on it. But thatdiggerdude@gmail.com. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll answer whatever questions I can. So yeah, we'll get to that for sure. Digging Oklahoma. I knew I was gonna forget your name, and I used it like 3 times this week talking to my wife about your videos, so I'm sorry. That's gonna drive me nuts. You're gonna have to write it in the comments, and I'm gonna have to wait almost a minute for it to get here before I can say your name correctly. I'm sorry. I'll get it. Give me till the next live stream and I think I'll get it. So Nick, what did you think going to school? So that's great that you're in here, because I get the perspective of operators who work with guys who have been through the equipment school. I get the perspective of some trainers that work for heavy equipment schools. I have yet to have someone that I can actively ask. Frank, thank you. I'm sorry, Frank. Thank you. Good to see you, man. But as far as having an actual student that's been through a program and then hit the real job site, if you don't mind, in the comments, type out a little bit about your experience as far as, did you feel like the school adequately prepared you for what you experienced on the job? And by the way, was this a technical school, or what kind of school was this? It wasn't, I'm assuming you said school, so it wasn't the apprenticeship. But yeah, let us know, because my big question is always, did you feel prepared when you hit the job site? Anyone can, you know, as most of us in here now that I'm kind of seeing, we're all pretty much operators, and all of us, which Dolomed, I will come back to your question. Give me just a second. All of us as operators kind of know that you can plop yourself down in the seat of pretty much any machine, having watched one or two YouTube videos on it, and within a week you're going to be proficient at making the machine move. You might not be an operator to where you can run the dog snot out of that machine, but you're at least proficient to make it move. And from the couple of instructors that I've really started to engage with, my beef with the technical schools, beef isn't even the right word. My complaint is they tend to spend too much time teaching people how to pull levers and not enough time on overall job process, like what to expect when you show up on that job. What is the process, and what's your little piece when you get stuck on helping the crew roll out fabric for edge drain? Like, what does that mean? Where are you at in the process? So I wish they would focus more on that. And then also just kind of skills. Like, it's one thing to be able to run an excavator. It's an entirely, excuse me, I told you, those dinner digestive burps, I'm sorry. But it's a whole other thing to be able to take an excavator and start digging a 2% grade coming up on grade for storm pipe and knowing the process of bedding in the pipe and, you know, digging your trench, bedding the pipe, setting the pipe, gearing up for the next structure, where to set your stuff. Like, that's a whole different animal from just being able to make an excavator move. So I am really curious how you kind of came out of school feeling as far as being equipped for life. So let's come back to Dolomed. How much did I start off making? When I was a landscaper, I was making peanuts. I think I was making like 10, maybe 11 bucks an hour. When I started as a laborer for the company that was doing residential work, the small company, I want to say he hired me in at like 12 or 13 an hour, with the caveat that he would try me out for a month or so, and then he would bump me up to, I think I started, my true starting wage was about 15 an hour. And I worked for him for 2.5 years. And by the time I got done there, I was a pretty good excavator operator. I was a really good finish dozer operator. And I was starting to take over some of the foreman responsibilities for him so that he could go focus on bidding jobs. And when I left there, I think I was right around, 18 or 19 an hour. And the reason I left is because I could get into the union and go work at a union company, and right off the get-go, because the union was hurting for people. I could go in and prove that I have my skill set of being able to operate the machines, and I could go get my journeyman card. I basically got a temporary, I think it was a 90-day temporary journeyman's card that they could yank at any point in time if it looked like I did not know what I was doing. But right off the get-go, I had full benefits, and I was making, I think my cash, not including fringe benefits, was like, what was that? Like 29? Man, it's been so long, I don't remember, in all honesty, but it was right around, I think the total package with like fringe benefits and everything was like 36 or 37 an hour. So my cash take home was like 31, 32 an hour, maybe. I don't remember. Someone might be able to help me out there, but I honestly don't remember what I was making there. Oh, let's see here. I got to catch up on the chat. That's the problem when I get chat and I get behind on this chat and I got to catch back up. Okay, so Nick, you were specific to forestry. So I'd be curious to see someone who went into more of a traditional like construction school, how they came out of it. I've talked to 2 guys right now that are going through school, and I just got through talking to an instructor out in the Utah area. And so many of those programs, they're based off of, what is the standard test? You guys are going to have to help me on this. The NEC or something, or ME, it's some initials that you get certifications that you're proficient. Proficient's even a stretch, but basically you've been kind of trained on some stuff. And that's who handles both of those programs, of the guys that I was talking to. And I went through the whole curriculum with the instructor out there in Utah. And one of the things that was kind of frustrating about those curriculums is they had 2 entire segments that were just going over different types of construction equipment. And it's like, the instructor and I were laughing about it, but it's like, if you can't show up to a job site and within 2 or 3 days be able to determine which of these machines is a skid steer, which one's an excavator, and which one's a backhoe, if you can't figure that out after 2 or 3 days, move on to a different industry. But to spend 2 whole segments of the class just going over different pieces of construction equipment, I go, man, that could be used in so many, like, go into basics of road building, go into basics of site prep and what's involved and what are the tools of the trade, common job site terms, how to read grade rods, how to go between tenths and inches. You know, that's really a lot more valuable to guys that are about to hit a job site. So hey Andrew, thanks for coming in. Sorry, I know you've been here for a while, but I'm slowly working on catching up here in the comments. Yeah, Nick, I agree. 1 year on a shovel, to me, if you stay with one company, and thanks, Danny, I just saw it down there in the comments, the NCCER, that's right. The NCCER runs both of those programs I was just talking about, and it's their curriculum that they're kind of using as a framework for the class. But to go back to Nick, I totally agree. If you can stay with one company, stay in one line of work for a full year, to me, that really kind of satisfies that job requirement of having that shovel time. You've got, by the end of that first year, you're really starting to get the flow of things. You're really starting to understand what's going on down in the trench, and that's when I feel like you're really starting to be qualified to move up into the seat of the machine and do more than just move piles around. You've got the experience now to where once you get the machine movements down, you know what that machine needs to be doing because you've spent the last year watching what the operator does. Dolomed, I would say, in all honesty, if I'm being 100% honest, after high school, so during high school, if there are any kind of trade schools that you can kind of get involved with. I know that there's some programs, like my brother-in-law, his high school actually offered a program. I cannot remember what he called it, or what the school called it, but they would actually take off for like 3/4 of the afternoon and go work an actual construction site. He was on a framing job. And so they start to teach you job site basics on framing crews and stuff like that. If there's anything like that in your area and you really know this is what you want to do, I'd highly recommend you get involved in something like that in high school to start getting the basics. But then after that, go find a small job, or I'm sorry, a small company, that's 5 to 15 employees, and start there. Those guys are going to be much more willing to hire someone that's a young kid that's coming fresh out of high school, especially if you can show them work ethic, that you've already, been involved in some stuff. You've got some, watching videos online really focused on the industry so that you can come into it knowing some terms. There's a fine line between showing that you have a little knowledge and being arrogant. And please don't be arrogant. That's a quick way to get yourself run out of town. But if you can show them that you've got some fundamental knowledge coming into it, and that you have work ethic, you're gonna get picked up in a heartbeat. Guys are really, really hurting for new blood right now, and especially if you go in saying you're willing to be a laborer and learn, you will have no problem finding a job. Oh, that's right, Nick. You are in Canada, so you are different. You're a lot nicer than we are too. In fact, Andrew there at Dirty Diggers, we were laughing about that this week. He was scolding someone for littering on the side of the road, and his scolding was like, if you do this, you're a bad person. And I told him, like, here in the States, we would just go on a swearing rampage, and there would be a lot of bleeping in my video where I was talking about the guy that just left a bunch of stuff on the side of the road. So yes, you guys are different there in Canada, but in an affectionate way. We love you guys. You're like our really, really nice upstairs neighbor. It's really polite and doesn't ever stomp, and goes to bed at reasonable hours. What's up, Phil? Welcome back, man, dude. So you guys have to shoot Phil some love right this second, because Phil is in Australia. It is midnight his time, and every single freaking video I post, oh, sorry, my phone, I should silence this thing, should I? Every single video I post, Phil is one of the top commenters on. Like, within an hour or so, Phil has already got one of the comments. And then all 3 of these live streams at midnight his time, he has been on. So, Phil, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And did your hat come in yet? Because I have lost the ability to track it now that it's officially in Australia. Danny, 100%. Work ethic and attitude. I'll tell you right now, this thing right here, the second that starts becoming a problem and it comes out all the time, if you find yourself looking at this all the time, as a new guy especially, where you haven't gone and proven that you have the skills to kind of back it up, that's going to get you a pretty firm talking to pretty quick. So work ethic is everything. Constantly be thinking about, what can I do next? What's the next step on the job that I can, if I can go get the water line, knowing that in 10 minutes we're going to be rolling out the water line and it's already here on the side of the trench, that goes a long way in the boss's eyes, versus everyone standing around, you texting on your phone, and then they go, hey, where's the water line? you know, of the two situations, which one would you want to be in? So that's a huge thing. James, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never had the balls to go and do that, but I have wanted to so many times. Craig, that's awesome, man. Scotland, that's so it's really that I will say that's one of the most rewarding things to me doing this is the international audience. Like it's one thing like Americans want to watch Americans. We're Americans. We love ourselves, right? But to have an international audience that's willing to watch me and an ignorant American talk about excavating, like that's really exciting. I really do appreciate that support, guys. It really means a lot to me. That's awesome. That's the stuff that really excites me. So, oh, Phil, I'm giving you all this credit. You should have just rolled with it, man. When you told me it was 12, what was it, New Year's Eve that we did the first one of these, and you told me it was 12? I've been under the impression this whole time that you've been staying up till midnight to watch these. Man, I take back everything I said about Phil. You're gonna send that hat back now. I'm just done with it. That's like I've been sold a bill of false goods. I'm upset. He is in the future. That's true. Yeah, it's Sunday night here. Yep. So going back to the international audience, I've already told Phil if this thing finally takes off and soars to the sky and I can get some money in my bank account, like one of my big dreams for this channel is to travel around the country. First of all, we'll start small, but bigger picture, I would love to travel the world. Norwegian Earth Movers, I don't know if you guys have seen his channel on YouTube, but he and I have gone back and forth a handful of times, going out and seeing Phil. Craig, if you're in the industry and you want to have me out, I would love to travel to Scotland, like to be able to see different parts of the world, because it's one thing traveling around the US and seeing, like even within our borders, there are so many different construction techniques. And I'm about to go down to Kentucky and work with a guy, and my entire career, I've never heard track loaders called anything but track loaders, except for apparently this pocket in Kentucky and Missouri where they call them high lifts. So like there's just so many variations in this industry within America. To be able to go international and work with some of you guys and hit some job sites and see, like especially you start getting over into Europe and everything where you got those funky machines that have all the crazy rototilt buckets and all the attachments, and they all fit within like a 3x3 foot square, except you don't use feet measurements, you use meters. So that's going to throw me. Like that would be a blast. That's really where I want to take this channel, is to really showcase the industry around the world. That's where my passion is. That's where I really want to take this. So that's exciting to have the international audience. Yeah, Nick, that's we had that a couple times when we were plowing snow. The bigger thing was when people would be idiots on our job sites. I had a 938 loader, and there was one occasion that we did fork someone's car out of the way, and no one on the job site knew about it that was in an authority position, because we could have gotten in huge trouble for that. But yeah, if the equipment's there. Yeah, that's the thing. When you've got equipment sitting, that was the boat we were in. Another time we had so we had a two-way. So in Michigan, you have these things that are called Michigan turns. Don't ask me why, it drives me nuts, but basically you've got an avenue going this way, you got an avenue going this way, and if you want to turn left onto the avenue, you actually have to turn right, use a little turnaround, and then go left. And on the job that we were working on, we had actually pulled all the asphalt up, and we're down to subgrade on the two inside lanes. And we had a semi that decided, instead of going to the next one that had all of the asphalt, all the pavement there, he needed to turn around at this one. He almost made it, except that his two back tires on the trailer, this was a 60-foot trailer, went off the grade. So he was actually stuck. The only thing that kept the truck from going over was the fact that he was already on the turn, and so his truck was angled and wasn't allowing it to tip. But he had both directions of this avenue totally blocked off between his truck and his trailer. And so I had hit the job site. It was like 10 minutes after I had showed up. The machine was warming up and I was in the middle of greasing. And my foreman comes screaming up in his truck. And he goes, "Get in the loader and come down, follow me. And throw your forks on." And I was like, okay. So, and he was in a fit. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I went and grabbed my forks, followed him down the job site. And then I see what's happening. And so he goes, "Fork underneath it and get it out of there." And I said, that my foreman's name was Don. I said, I popped my door open and I said, "Don, so that the record may show, I want your explicit permission that you're telling me to fork this guy out of here because I have no idea what's going to happen." And he goes, he starts swearing, "Get him out of here." I said, okay. And so I was shocked. That 938 made that semi-trailer feel light, and he was loaded. But that 60-foot semi-trailer, I popped him right up, and then I actually chased him around the bend until he was back on asphalt and set him down on the fly, and away he went. So you use the tools that you've got on the job. It is what it is. That's just part of the industry. Yeah, Craig, that is one thing I understand about Scotland, is you guys enjoy your rain over there. So, which I don't know, I can't really say that much because coming from Texas and moving to Michigan, it rains here all the freaking time compared to Texas, but I'm sure it does not compare to what you got in Scotland. Octavio, thank you. I really appreciate that. I really, like, that is what I do this for, is for you guys. My whole goal starting this channel, so I had this channel for about 7 years, and I didn't really have a direction for it. If you go back to my if you dig way back, you'll see that I was kind of randomly throwing up pictures or videos of me operating. And so this was just kind of a fun way for me to try to play on the internet. Then back in March of this past year, that's when my wife and I kind of made the commitment that we were going to do this full time. And excuse me, I'm sorry guys, I'm sorry. That's where I was kind of like, I didn't know really what I wanted to do with the channel. And so I ended up making the, what it's like to be a heavy equipment operator. That was the video that kicked it all off. I was actually on a job site talking to a younger guy that was new to the industry, and he goes, "Man, I just wish someone had something that just helped new guys get started because I had no building blocks." And I kind of went, that's it. Like, I've been passionate about this industry my entire life. I haven't really known what I want to do with it, but like, this is it. I love teaching and helping guys. So for you to say that, like, you're the reason I do this channel, and those comments are the reason I do this channel. I'm totally here to help you guys out. So all that being said, if you've got any questions, if there's anything I can help you with, if you want a video topic done on something specifically that you're struggling with, do not hesitate to reach out. I've already put up 3 or 4 different videos that have been at the request of someone. So by all means, don't hesitate to reach out. I got no problem helping you guys out. Nick, 100%. It's always in the parking lots or on the streets. My favorite thing in the world was we had this entire intersection shut down one day. We had orange signs. I think we were required by MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation. We were required to have those signs out like 2 miles from where the intersection was totally closed off. I was running a concrete breaker. So I'm in the middle of this intersection. Across the entire intersection, we have 4 freaking barricades with the giant road closed signs over top of them. And we still had a line of 4 cars. Oh, by the way, the excavator is chasing me, actively pulling concrete. So there's literally broken concrete across the whole intersection. And then half of the intersection doesn't even have concrete because the excavator is actively loading it out on trucks. We had 4 cars drive in there, and one of them had the balls to roll down his window and say, "You guys should have marked this better." It's like, how dumb can you be? So that was the one guy that I actually walked. It was a concrete breaker that you walk beside. So I turned it off real quick and walked beside his car as he did the embarrassing back out. And as we passed the barricades with the giant road closed sign, I just leaned right next to his window and pointed to it. It's like, how dumb do you have to be? But unfortunately, that's the industry. Another job I was on, we had a concrete paving crew. So we had done all of our prep work. The paving crew was coming in and they were going to do, I want to say it was like a half-mile stretch of road overnight. I mean, it was a huge operation. And these guys had worked all night long. We came into the job the next day to see 2 tire tracks start at one end of the job, the end of the job that the concrete started at. And they just slowly got deeper and deeper and deeper until you got to about 100 yards behind the paver, to where the concrete was still thin enough that they actually bottomed the car out and they had to call a wrecker to come pull them out. Turns out it was some drunk teenagers that decided they were going to go joyriding on the new section of road, not realizing that the new section of road was actively being poured while they were driving on it. That's what you get to deal with. I want to say that ended up costing, I want to say it was like $200,000 worth of concrete that actually had to come back out and had to be re-poured on another overnight operation. It was unreal. I would not have been happy to be his parents and get the insurance bill on that one. So you see, you guys got me chatting again. Now I gotta catch back up at the chat. What's up, Sam? Samuel? I don't know what you want to be called. I'm gonna go with Sam. I don't know. And the second one, Andrew said, Dirty Diggers up there to Octavio, 100%. Like, thicken your skin up, make sure you're good, but stick with it. This is such a great career. There's so many things you can do within this industry. It's a blast. And Danny, 100%. Don't ever think you've reached the pinnacle. Like, you never know it all. I still, to this day, even on simple job sites, will pick up like some dozer tip or some trick that I watched some guy do with an excavator. I'm like, I've never even thought about that before. Like, the second you fall into this mindset that you've got it all figured out, you're done. You're not improving. You're not getting better as an operator. If you stick with it, though, you never stop improving as an operator. You never stop, like, hone your craft. I put on the wrong sweatshirt. I got another hone your craft. That's why I say that phrase, that catch line is hone your craft. Like, you never stop honing your craft in this industry. You're always getting it sharper with all of these different techniques and the tricks you pick up. So, see, James has got a sugar mama at home. That's what it is. It's a hobby for him. He doesn't have to work hard. He just goes out and he pushes snow. That's what's really going on with James, which Gibson Landscape Construction, if you guys haven't gone and seen his channel and you like snow pushing, he does a really great job. But I think he just confessed to this is just a gravy gig for him because he's got a sugar mama paying the bills at home. And so he goes out and he pushes snow for 45 minutes or so, right, James? And then you call it a day, and then you claim online that you've been pushing snow for 6 hours. I'm on to you. I know what's going on. Now I'm gonna give you crap about that for every video you post. Yeah, Jay, 100%. There are days that I certainly think I could have picked a better career. In fact, I was just going back and forth with, I just lost your name. Dadgummit. Hang on, I gotta go back. Frank, jeez, that's gonna kill me. I was just going back and forth with Frank on, he was doing a repair on a water line that was leaking, and it was live, so the hole is a giant mud pit and everything. So all that to say, like, there are days that I certainly double think what I'm doing with my life, and is this really the right career choice for me? But at the same time, by the next morning, you're just like, I can't wait to get back out there and run the equipment again. Like, it's fun. It's a great industry. It's a blast. So, yeah, Andrew, that's 100%. Like, if you want to know what we're passionate about, we're all sitting around on the night before. Well, I'm an exception because I'm doing this full time, but for you guys, you've got a full day of work tomorrow and you're still sitting here talking about running equipment and watching videos of guys running equipment. That, it's our passion, and that's what you're going to find too for new guys getting into the industry. What you're going to find is this industry gets into your blood. One of my favorite things every freaking year was the previous year you had these old timers. This is it. screw this industry. I'm retiring next year. I'm not coming back. They're just tired. They're ready to be done. Next spring, guess who shows up and he's back in the dozer? And every conversation, or every year was, I thought you were retiring. I gave it one more year. The next year, sure enough, the end of the season, that's it. I'm out. I'm not coming back. I mean it this time. Next spring, I thought you weren't coming back. One more year. There's just something about this industry. It gets in your blood. You don't want to leave. It's fun. And hence why we're all sitting around here talking about heavy equipment, even though most of us have to go to work tomorrow running heavy equipment. It's just, this is our passion. Nick, I would love to teach a video on that. So when I ran my loader, the key is you have to be the guy in the same machine every day, and that's not always the case. But when I was running the loader, especially for the pipe crew, and I knew that was my baby for the year, pro tip right here, go get some Pledge, orange scented Pledge, and once you get pretty much everything wiped down and the cab swept out really well, get you some orange scented Pledge and spritz the cab real good and wipe it down. And what the Pledge does is it takes all that dust and everything that starts collecting, and it actually kind of bounces it. I don't know if it does like static or whatever, but it keeps a lot of the dust down and it polishes up the cab really nice, and it smells like oranges. It's lovely. Especially if you start getting in an older machine that's got that like old machine stank on it, that orange Pledge does miracles, and it keeps your cab spotless. So who knows, because I don't have equipment that is mine right now, but maybe down the road I will do a cleaning the cab tutorial. My wife has a couple aprons that she bakes with. Maybe I'm kind of just spitballing here. Maybe I throw on an apron and we do a cleaning video. I'm sure that won't be offensive to my female audience at all. So that might not be the best idea, but like I said, we're just spitballing here, but we'll see what happens. So James, I have not worked for a building contractor. All of my experience was in road work and airports outside of the residential that I did. So no, unfortunately I don't have any real site work experience, like real prepping for a steel structure to go up. I don't have any experience in that world, unfortunately. Octavio, just saw your comment. I know I'm way behind in the comments right now. Just keep your head up. So I actually, it's funny you say that. I started this live stream talking about that specific thing. Like, there's a lot of guys in this industry that just kind of expect you to know everything, and it is absolutely frustrating. Keep at it. It will get better, especially as your knowledge base increases and the guys slowly, you kind of put in your time so that the guys tend to see you more as one of them as opposed to one of the new guys. That will get better. But this right here, this live stream, these comments right here, this is the resource I kind of want to set up for you guys. I was just talking to someone this week about this. Like, this live stream is not me trying to be the God keeper of construction knowledge, because I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. But the comments right over here, like, there are a lot of really good operators in here. Andrew, Phil, you've got Nick, he's got a bunch of experience. Frank has got a ton of experience. Like, just going through, I can't remember the guy's name. Jimmy shows up a lot of times in here, and he's a foreman. Like, there's a lot of good knowledge and experience in this comment section. And I want this to be a resource and a forum for you guys, to where we can all kind of talk back and forth and bounce ideas off of each other. And so all that to say, it might get frustrating on the job. Don't ever hesitate to reach out to anyone in the comments, or anyone, in these live streams, or jump in the comments on any of my videos and feel free to ask away. And I know that a lot of these guys will step up and give you some help. So Michael, how much does heavy equipment school cost? That's a hard question. I've seen programs that are like $2,500 to $5,000. The best education, in all honesty, is one that you're not paying for, but you're getting paid for. And that is going and finding a small company and getting in with those guys, in all honesty, it's hard to beat that experience. So, and because you're getting paid for it, you're getting the same knowledge, if not more knowledge, as what you get at a trade school. But if you do want to pursue a trade school, by all means, there are some good trade schools out there. But they vary wildly, and it depends on, you know, some of them have a full turnkey program, some of them have modules, so you'd have like a level 1 course, and then you go from there to a level 2 course, and then a level 3 course, and each one of those is $2,500. So it's really hard to say what it costs. AP, I'm just going to call you AP because that's all I've got to go off of. I'm the same way, except watching you guys over in Europe. You guys have some of the coolest stuff to play with as far as attachments and everything else goes. So I actually really like watching your stuff, because over here in America, we're just about bigger is better. And in Europe, you guys have excavators that fold into a shoebox that you can get between two houses, and then they magically unfold, and it's a full-blown excavator. Like, some of the stuff you guys have over there just blows my mind. It's awesome. All right, James. All right, I'm going to stay posted on your summer stuff. We'll see if you actually work or you just got that sugar mama taking care of you. Yeah, so Frank up there, again, I'm way behind in our comments, guys. I'm sorry. Frank up there is absolutely right. Yeah, learning from other operators. Frank is a great guy to go learn from. He just posted a video where he dug an elevator shaft. You want to talk about a clean freaking hole with a backhoe. It blows my mind what he can do with that backhoe. But you're watching an experienced operator that has honed his craft. He knows his machine inside and out, to watch the way he digs the hole. He talks his way through it, you know, how he digs in that hard clay. And in all honesty, up here in Michigan, we have some pockets of hard clay, but we deal with a lot of sand. And so when you watch my videos, you're going to see different techniques, because we have to worry more about benching and worrying about those sandy banks caving in, because we deal with a lot of groundwater too. You know, always learn from experienced operators, because you never stop. You're always learning about new conditions and new situations you might be in. Frank, I'm in the same boat as far as not knowing what to do when I grow up. Here I am, and I just started a new career that who knows if this is going to pan out or not. But and even within this, I'm not really sure what we're going to do with it. Like, I enjoy what I'm doing with the channel now, but I've got ideas of where we could go, and who knows this may all fall through and I go get another operating job by this summer or the end of this summer. Well, who knows? You know, who knows where life will take us. I have gone from Home Depot to landscaping to operations manager for a manufacturing company to, like, I started in the banking industry. So you want to talk about a ping pong of life. It's been interesting. Nick, Crocs, man, come on. Crocs, that's offensive. Who wears Crocs as a man? How do you wear Crocs on the job site? They're plastic shoes, and if you've seen Deadpool, you know what he refers to those as, which makes me die laughing every time I hear someone talk about Crocs. Yeah, Andrew, fresh topsoil. It's one of those things, it's an acquired taste. It's one of those things where the first couple times it's the nastiest thing in the world, until you start to realize that smell means it's worth a lot of money, and then it's like, that smells good. In a bad way, but it smells good. Hey, Alan. Sorry, I'm way behind in the comments. Appreciate you stopping in, man. Is your son with you as well, or is it just you flying solo? I appreciate you coming in. Alan is another guy. So if you like watching videos of just machines running, Alan is not an operator. He is a school teacher that this is his passion on the side, and he's got a bunch of videos of just machines running. So check his channel out if you like watching machines just running raw. But he goes around filming with his son, and I'm gonna try to make it out his way, maybe in the spring, we'll see. But because he's been following my channel, I think he follows Andrew as well, and I think I've seen him on James's channel possibly. but we're slowly teaching him the trade. So I told him maybe this summer we can get him into the seat of a machine, since he's going to be the operator expert by the time we're all done here. So, excuse me, we'll have to make a video of Alan running some equipment. Yeah, thanks, Octavio. I appreciate the subscribe. Pushy6 does a really good job. So back in the day, he was focused a lot more on like the, he was in cab. He obviously kind of followed a similar path to me, where he was an operator and then kind of transitioned into the filming side. I love watching his new content. My only disappointment there is that he posts once every couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so. It's not super consistent. But man, when he comes out with some videos, they're like absolute bangers. He's doing a great job with his content. I think I've been following him for like 6 or 7 years now. Yeah, Andrew is one of the most patient, polite construction workers I've ever encountered in my life. I want to go work for Andrew after watching his videos. I feel like you could roll a machine and Andrew would come over and be like, "Man, this is really disappointing, but are you okay?" like that would be the extent of your scolding on that one. So Jay, I know I'm so far behind you guys, but yeah, the rototilt buckets, especially the ones with the little pinchers on the back of it. There are some surgeon operators out there with those things. Those things are freaking amazing, watching what guys can do with it. Frank, it ain't luck. Come on, you're being humble. You're being too humble. It's all skill, brother. Yeah, AP here in the States, sometimes it's kind of like we're compensating for something in a lot of ways. We have giant lifted trucks, we have giant construction equipment. Most of our buildings are giant phallic shaped buildings. So yes, we enjoy our large heavy iron. I think everyone in the comments would agree that the second you get a chance to get in a 385 excavator is probably one of the high points of your career. And if you get anything bigger, you're on cloud 9. So we enjoy our large iron here, especially like in Michigan, where you can haul like a 385 on a triaxle trailer, essentially, because our weight restrictions are so through the roof. It's ungodly unrealistic, but yeah, we like our heavy equipment. So James, she's a stay-at-home mom. Does that mean you have handed the bathroom renovation over to her? So one of the things James has been doing on his channel is they're renovating their bathroom, and maybe that's what the big ploy was, is you acted like you were doing the bathroom reno, but actually you handed that one over to Mama as soon as the camera was off. I've got a lot of theories. I'm spitballing here. I don't know. I'll be right back. I have to take off my sweatshirt. I'm burning up in here. Whew, okay, much better. Much better. See, Frank loves his backhoe. I just do not like backhoes, but part of that's because I spent 6 months bouncing up and down a freeway on a backhoe, and it just drove me nuts. So Alan, forgive me, what's your son's name? I cannot remember. I will get it at some point in time. I am, by the way, since you guys are both here, I am still working on making your base materials video. We've had not a bunch of snow, but we've had some snowfalls, so I know the pits don't have material readily available for me that I could just drive in there and pick some up. But that's one of those videos I kind of want to have some little containers with the material in it, so I can hold them up and show you guys what I'm talking about. But all that to say, I am going to do your video on base materials. So Peyton, honestly, just ask away. Like I said just a minute ago, there's so many resources, there's so much knowledge over here in the comments section that if I'm not able to get to it, you're gonna have one of these other operators jump in on it. By all means, start asking away, buddy. Take it over. This whole thing is geared for guys like you. If you got questions, that's why I'm doing this live cast. It has nothing to do with me just babbling and you guys watching. Like, this is for you to get information, so ask away. Nick, I'm flattered that you would put me on the same level as Let's Dig. I don't feel like I'm anywhere remotely close. I appreciate that, but Chris, you want to talk about a freaking operator that knows his craft. Chris is an amazing operator, and he has done a great job of getting in front of a lot of people to generate excitement about the industry. Yeah, Let's Dig 18 is an awesome channel. I've been subscribed to him for probably 7 or 8 years. I mean, about the same time as Pushy 6. So, and then what was it, Vantages or Vantages, or there was another guy that used to make videos up out of Canada that worked for, man, what company was that he was working for? It was one of the big ones up there in Canada. That he used to make great content, and then those guys dropped off the face of the earth, which I always thought was ironic because they were doing it to make money before that really got popular on YouTube, and then about the time that took off, they dropped off the face of the earth. So those guys did a fantastic job. I really missed that channel. I used to follow them. I followed them about the same time. Frank, I bet that gets a little lonely because you're kind of a dying breed, believe it or not. Like, so I worked I worked for a Case dealership, and backhoe sales, like, they're still hanging in there, but they're definitely tailing down through the years as more guys get more and more comfortable with mini excavators and coupling them with like a CTL skid steer. It's hard to beat the production you get out of the two machines versus the one backhoe, and especially if you get into the used market, you could get a used mini and a used CTL that's going to be more productive than the backhoe. And you know, a backhoe is going to cost you, depending on the regular, so a 580 Super N is going to run you about 110 grand new, versus if you get into a couple used pieces, you're going to, you know, a used CTL is probably, for a good low hours used CTL, you're probably around the 30 mark, and for a low hours mini, you're probably around the 30 to 50 mark, depending on what size you want to go for and everything. So, you know, to get the two machines, they're going to be small enough you can most of the time fit them on your tag trailer that you were hauling your backhoe around, but now you've got way more production and you've got way smaller footprints on your job site. I mean, I think it's a matter of time before the backhoe won't ever fully die out, but I do foresee it really being in steep decline. So, Octavio, let me see what I can do. Man, I wish I used to have a notepad down here that I could write notes on. We'll use this piece of instructions here from one of my devices. Let's see here. Make channel sublist. Okay, buddy. After we get done here, probably not tonight because you guys are going to keep me up late again, but tomorrow, that will be one of my goals tomorrow, is to make a channel sublist of guys that I subscribe to and guys that I enjoy watching. So yeah, we can do that. That's no problem at all. And I don't know if I'll put them in the description for this video. I'll figure something out for you. Let's see here. I gotta pick up where I left off here. Elite Earthworks does a great job. And he's been doing some mulching stuff, which I think I saw. Yeah, so Andrew commented too. He's been doing some stuff with that Fecon head. So I sold those Fecon heads. Those things are unbelievable. Rick, my buddy that you guys have seen in a bunch of my videos, he's got a Fecon. He was one of my first Fecon head purchases or sales for my end. Excuse me. And so I've got a fair amount of time around that, and those things are absolute monsters. No kidding, no exaggerating. After he kills the hydraulic power to that head, it takes about 2 minutes to fully spin down from speed. There's no brake on it like other attachments. It literally free floats, And that drum, I don't even know how much that drum weighs, but there is so much freaking inertia built up in that drum. It takes forever to spin down. Those things are just, they're monsters. They are awesome attachments. Thanks, Octavio. I appreciate the, again, the compliments. I really appreciate it. I do try to make my content relatable. My big thing is I want to be easily approachable, because I know that guys have questions, and I want you to feel free to ask without having to think you're going to sound dumb or you're going to be judged or anything. We've all been new to this industry, and unfortunately that's one area of this industry that really needs some help, is the education side and the getting people in the door. So yeah, James, I agree. You had a very attractive wife working on that bathroom. That's good clickbait material. That's why I had my wife run a loader. You know, I'm just kidding. She chose to run the loader, and she was the one that suggested filming, which I jumped at because, yes, women in this industry attract attention. So AP, what forward dumper are you referencing there? Because I've seen so many variations of dumpers that, and you guys have so many crazy things over there. I'm sure I've seen it at some point in time, but I don't know specifically which one you're talking about. Noah, that's right. Noah, thanks for watching, man. I appreciate it. You and your dad, you were some of my first diehard subscribers, and I really appreciate the support. And I am going to try to come and see you guys here in the spring. Dirt Boss does a great job. Another good one. Jay's hitting all the good ones. Digging Life 21. I haven't watched as much of his stuff. He's been one that's kind of popped up through my feed, and I've just never paid attention enough to hit the subscribe button. But Dirt Boss, I really enjoy him. He's like a stereotypical New Yorker. He's a lot of fun to watch. Alan, have not seen Full Tilt Grading. I will have to go look them up. In fact, I'm going to have to go back through these comments and look up some of these channels. Oh, see, AP, you're not even getting into the fun stuff. If a 30 ton, maybe a 35 ton is your biggest machine, come on overseas. I'll treat you. We'll go find some of the big machines. Like, you start getting into the big excavators, some of the big loaders, like, man, getting into the 988 and the 992 loaders. We got some fun stuff over here. You guys are playing with Tinker Toys. But at the same time, in your defense, you have a house every 4 feet and no room to operate on your freaking roads too. So I understand why, but at the same time, you should come over here and play with some of the big stuff. Andrew, yeah, that's what I noticed. So of our backhoe sales, almost every single one of my backhoe sales were directly to a builder. So it was someone who was doing some dirt work on their own. They wanted the flexibility that the backhoe offered, but they also didn't have a whole fleet of equipment. But anyone that started to get into having a fleet, even if it was 2 or 3 machines, they would almost always opt for going with the mini and the CTL combo. So, footing guys, for whatever reason, like those backhoes too. I had a couple footing guys that just swore up and down by their backhoes, and everybody's got their own opinion. Peyton, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. That doesn't ever fully go away. Like, you start to get your feet under you for sure, to where it's not like drinking from a fire hydrant the whole time. But at the same time, I mean, you're sitting in a forum with a bunch of operators who are sitting here talking back and forth about heavy equipment. And at the end of the day, the reason we do this, the reason we go and watch other people operate and everything, it's not just the passion of the industry. It's also because we're learning. Like, I watch Frank's videos, and to watch him dig and listen to him talk about his technique and the way he's thinking about the hole and benching it, to watch Andrew talk about how he's going to get out of whatever predicament he's in, or how he's going to approach one of these ridiculously god-awful tight backyards he gets into. You know, watching James go about his snow plowing and how he's going to go up to this lot and start, and where he's going to, how he's going to angle his blade, and how he's going to angle the wings in to grab as much snow as possible and do it in an efficient way, because he owns his own company. It's not like he's out there just playing. He's got to be efficient and productive. there's a reason we as operators watch other operators' channels, and it's not just for fun and shits and giggles. Sorry. We're learning. You're always going to be learning in this industry. That's just part of it. And that's a fun aspect of it too. The fact that you never stop learning is a really fun aspect of this job. Yeah, James just nailed exactly what I just said. You're always going to be learning. Yeah, so Jay brings up a good point, heavy metal learning. He does a really good job. So his knowledge base is getting you started with the basics of equipment, and he does a really, really good job at it. It's how to hook up attachments, how to load up on a trailer, how to, it's anything and everything involved with how to actually physically move the machine. Heavy metal learning does a really, really great job. But once you kind of get outside of that scope, because of what he does in the facility that he has, he's kind of limited on what he can do. But man, for new operators getting into it, I 100% check out Heavy Metal Learning. He does a really, really good job with your introductory equipment videos. Best brand bucket and attachments I sold at Case. So, that's a difficult one. So our buckets, when you say buckets, are you talking skid steer or excavator? Pretty much every bucket that we would sell that was aftermarket would be a work brow. Work brow makes really solid stuff. We never had any issues with like bad welds or thin gauge metal or anything like that. They did a great job, and they're a big enough company, well-known company, that you don't have to worry about any quality control issues. They are also big enough that, let's say you wanted to get a bucket in, but you wanted it fit with Case Smart Fit teeth, or you wanted something specific on the bucket. You'd have to go through your dealership to interface with Workbrow, but they would design total custom buckets. So one of my customers actually needed a bucket. He did footings, sorry, can't talk. And he needed a bucket that was exact, it would dig an exact 36-inch trench. And what you don't realize is, or you may realize this, is when you have a 36-inch bucket, that means the bucket width with the teeth and everything is actually a little wider. You're talking about the walls of the bucket are 36 inches, but by the time you have the spade teeth and you've got your edge, side cutters and everything, it's actually taken closer to like 38 or 40 inches. And because he did footings, what you realize when you start doing footings, if you're not familiar, is you have to backfill that with concrete, and concrete's very expensive. So yeah, 4 more inches doesn't necessarily sound like that much more material, but when you multiply that off, over 300 feet of footing, like that's a lot of cubic yards of material that you're having to make up with expensive concrete. So we actually ordered in a bucket that was specific. It would cut an exact 36-inch trench. He had spade teeth, and he wanted the flare teeth, the big wide ones, and we had specific measurements on how he wanted those. Like, they can do some really good custom stuff. So Workbrow 100% on buckets. As far as attachments, that is such a hard question, because as an operator or as a business owner, you realize that there's this huge universe of attachments. When you go into equipment sales, you realize that universe of attachments is actually about 10 times bigger than you ultimately realized. So we had almost weekly, we had different attachment vendors that were swinging through, dropping off literature and trying to get us to sell their stuff. So it's really hard, without narrowing down into a category of what kind of attachment you're looking for, to really kind of say the best attachments. I will say Paladin Attachments is one of the bigger names in the attachment world. Blue Diamond is another good one. So Paladin put the kind of beefier attachments out, in my opinion, of the ones that we sold and I was familiar with. Blue Diamond has some beefy attachments, but a lot of their stuff tends to be a little... I want to be careful here because I don't want to give them a bad reputation. They put out really good stuff. But if you compared apples to one that you got from Paladin, it just seemed to be a little on the cheaper side. I never had any real super big issues with any of their attachments, like being flimsy and breaking. It just didn't look as beefy and rugged as the Paladin stuff did. So So all that to say, I don't know. That was a very long-winded way of saying it, but James, it's all right. We had the same experience. I thought for sure that video was going to blow up with my wife running the loader, and I think we had something similar on it. And I think it offended my wife a little. She was like, "What? It only has that many views?" And I was like, I can't control it. I'm over there on my phone trying to watch it 50 times. Boost the self-esteem. So, Jay, I am in Central Michigan. Excuse me. I'm in Central Michigan. So our big competitors we have Michigan Cat, we have AIS, and AIS, I always get these two mixed up. I think AIS sells John Deere and Volvo. No, I'm sorry, John Deere. Then we have Alta Equipment, which sells Volvo, and then a bunch of other brands. And then we have, let's see here, who is it that sells? Carlton Equipment sells Bobcat. Cat almost always in almost every market will pretty much blow everybody out of the water when it comes to service. So from that standpoint, although especially right now with the way the labor market is with the skilled trades, I know even Cat's hurting on qualified techs. So we were getting a lot of complaints from customers coming over from Cat that they couldn't get a tech out to them very quickly. That was one of those things where I kind of had to politely tell my customer, hey, I don't want to blow your expectations, but we're not going to be much better because everyone in this area is really suffering. As far as the sales side goes with Cat, Michigan Cat, we had a lot of complaints from our smaller owner operators. Cat really caters to the big guys, which, you know, you think about it from a business standpoint, I don't fault them for it. I mean, obviously, if this guy over here is going to spend $5 to $7 million in the next 2 years, and you've got this guy over here that's going to buy a $120,000 backhoe, and that'll last him 7 to 10 years, I understand that. But at the same time, you know, that equipment, that $120,000 backhoe purchase is going to be more meaningful to that owner operator than, you know, $7 million worth of equipment over the course of a year and a half for one of these big companies. Like this guy, this is his entire livelihood. This guy over here, like I could just go down the road to Komatsu and change my order around or whatever. So we did have a lot of complaints about that from Cat. Alta, I've heard real hit and miss things from. It just depends. AIS, I heard a fair amount of good things about AIS. And then Carlton Equipment, it was kind of because it's Bobcat, they don't deal a whole lot. I think I don't know if they just started selling Doosan or not, but they've got Doosan loaders and excavators, and those just aren't popular around here at all. So it's kind of an uphill battle for those guys to really sell the big iron. So I didn't really deal with them on that scope. So all that to say, while that's my scope of the world here, dealerships vary so much from place to place. I have to be very careful with what I say here. I don't want to dog my former employer. But as an overall dealership and the support that they provided to their customers, that's part of the reason I ended up parting ways with them. It was on their terms. They canned me. In all honesty, they shit canned me. But that's part of the reason we parted ways, is because I was a little vocal on how we treated our customers on the back end of the transaction. But that's not the case with Case dealerships everywhere. I've heard real hit and miss things depending on what area of the country. Out in the Midwest, I think you've got, man, this is where I wish Carson Shifsky was in here like he was that first night. I cannot remember who his dealership was. They have a great Case dealership out there, and they will move mountains to help those guys out, even though in the grand scheme of things, they're a relatively small company in the world of construction equipment in that area. So don't get too hung up on Cat, Komatsu, John Deere, you know, Case. Really, it's going to boil down, and even from a larger dealership network, it's going to boil down to your local dealership on you know, who you prefer personally and who treats you well and who does a good job servicing your equipment. So sorry I can't be more helpful on that one. But that is one thing that was very helpful working on the dealership side, is really getting an eye-opening experience as to how intimate that relationship is, the relationship between you and your dealer, but then also how much a good sales guy and how much a good service tech being in your corner will really impact your relationship with that dealer. So, all right, so we're gonna go over here real quick and look at AP's dumpers. So I'm just gonna click and copy and paste this because I have no idea how to spell that. So we're gonna flip over to the browser here, guys. And we're gonna go right there and check out the images. Oh, I gotcha. So I've seen these occasionally. These are actually, I don't know, some of you guys in the comments may have seen them more. These are pretty rare in my neck of the woods. What we see more of, especially up here in Michigan, are the tracked dumpers that will actually spin 360. I can't even remember who makes them. But that's generally what we see more here in the States as opposed to the one that I just looked at there. We do see a lot more, we call them like dirt buggies or concrete buggies, which is the way smaller version of that. That will fit through backyards. They're really popular for that. But as far as getting something that big, I don't think I've ever seen one that big. So Nick, yes, that rigid frame quarry truck, that was all me. So that was a highway project we were working on down in Texas, and we were hauling about a mile from the cut, and it was a new overpass that was going in, and we were doing the big embankments that go up to the overpass. And we had actually, in my defense, so I am proud of getting it that stuck. Like, that was, to get that massive freaking dump that stuck was pretty sweet in my opinion. But in my defense, it wasn't like I just went wallowing in the mud. We had actually been turning a little higher up on the embankment with no problem. Everything was dry and we weren't having any issues. And then we got far enough ahead on our piles that I decided I was going to start making a new turnaround a little further up. And you can see it did not go as well as intended. So we had a 988 on the job that had to run down from the cut. Didn't take him that long. And he was able to push me out with no problem whatsoever. But that was, I absolutely, first thing I had to do was get out of the cab and take a picture of that one. So AMI makes good attachments, James. I didn't have a ton of experience with theirs, but I did, what little experience I did have, they seem to put out some pretty quality stuff. I have no experience with Grib. I'm assuming I'm saying that right, Grib. So Nick, 100%. So I talked about this in my last live stream. Caterpillar and Deere, let's get around my microphone here, are two equipment manufacturers that, don't get me wrong, they put out some nice equipment. I will not argue that they put out some really good equipment. My problem is how much they want for that equipment versus the value you're actually getting for the price point. Deere especially, believe it or not, Cat was more in line when we got to get skinny on a deal. Generally, Cat was more in line with our pricing than Deere was. Deere always came in astronomically high. And at some point, it's like, dude, at the end of the day, it's an excavator. Like, you haven't put $15,000 worth of extra features on this excavator. You're not getting $15,000 more production out of this machine. It's still an excavator like everybody else's. And you're talking, when you really talk production differences, you're talking like percentages, like small percentages of difference. Like, you're not going to get 15 extra trucks out a day in a Deere versus a Cat or a Case. Like, you're just not going to get that out of it. So, you know, if we start talking about getting into like Kobelco, here we go on my Kobelco kick again. Like Kobelco, you get a really, really good value and you get it for a really reasonable price, unless you go with like a hybrid machine. But then the hybrid machine, you're getting a production value out of that machine plus a fuel savings value that totally makes sense to pay the extra money for the machine. But with a Deere excavator, like I never understood why Deere excavators or Deere skid steers came in so much higher than everybody else. Get over yourself. So, okay, off of my soapbox. Yeah, James, you're kind of hitting it right on the head. It totally depends on where you're at as to what kind of a dealership experience you're going to get. And that's why I try to be careful in these conversations not to dog anyone too hard. Just because it is totally, and even within a dealership, like I've had dealerships where you go down the road and someone just hates the dealership. They hate John Deere dealers, the John Deere dealer. They hate the Cat dealer. But then you go this direction and they absolutely love them. The location bends over backwards. Their service techs are super nice and they get right to them. It's really hard for me to say anything to kind of guide anyone on a dealership experience because it is so much at the local level. So Josh, thinking about going to operator school. So 20 grand for the certifications. So what I will say there is you're going to spend 20 grand. I'm assuming you're going to be in that program for a year. Maybe, I don't know. How long is the program? You'll have to tell me what that is. The problem I have with that is you're going to spend all of that time and money, and you're going to spend a lot of that time learning different pieces of equipment. You're going to spend a lot of it talking about broad generalizations about safety, which I'm going to record here in the next week or so. I'm going to record a video on kind of practical safety on the job site, and I know it's going to be, I'm probably going to get raked over the coals in the comments for it, but there's real job site safety. And then there's what I like to call the 10 and 2 safety. So like when you were learning to drive, you're supposed to keep those hands at 10 and 2, and that's being safe, right? And you need to do it every time you can. Don't take that second hand off the wheel. I mean, come on, that's not practical. That's not real driving. And it's similar with a lot of these classes is you spend a whole chunk of time talking about safety. And of that safety chunk of time, 30%, 50%, 60% maybe applies, and the other 40% is like wear your hard hat at every moment on every job site, even when you're in the machine. I've never heard of someone getting killed from a random hammer dropping on them in the middle of a highway job where there's no overhead things inside their enclosed cab loader. Like, I'm sorry, it's not practical. That's not reality. So that's one of my beefs with going to the school. The other thing is you're forking over 20 grand of your money when the industry is dying for operators right now and people will pay to train you. And that includes your safety certifications. Believe it or not, if you can get in with one of these companies, a lot of times they will send you to an OSHA 30-hour course, or they will send you to a mine safety course, or they will send you for whatever your certification is you need. So if it's possible, if it's doable in your area, I would highly encourage you, save yourself the money and then go spend that year. Instead of paying 20 grand for a year worth of education, like go make 60 grand in a year and a half, 2 years. You know, even if you start at the bottom rung making $15 an hour, go make 50 grand instead of paying 20. So that's kind of why I try to steer guys away from the trade schools, unless you know it's an exceptional program that you're going to come out of there with just heaps of knowledge. I would steer you more towards getting job site experience. James 988, that 988 was a monster. I'll have to, if you go to my Instagram, which has been flashing down here, if you go to my Instagram and scroll back, it's been a while since I posted it, there is a picture of a guy, of our grease guy. So in Texas, we were super spoiled. We had a fuel truck that would come around that also had grease on it, and he would grease the machine. You literally sat in the cab. I would get out and chat with him. But he's greasing the machine because he knew where all the grease points were, and he's fueling it up, and he was the fluids and grease guy. He was the lube truck. And I've got a picture of him greasing the bucket on that machine, and it is like, he is so small. And what's even crazier to me is Like there's 2 classes above that. You've got the 992 and then you've got the 994 that go even bigger. I like, it blows my mind, those loader. I'm dying to see one of those in my career at some point in time. So, but yes, that 988 was an awesome loader to watch in action, especially because that operator, you know, we talk as operators about how much we nerd out on watching good operators. Dude, the operator that ran this 988 was just one of those operators you could watch all day. He made that machine sing. The shift and transition between, you know, forward to reverse was just smooth as silk because he knew that machine. There was no wasted motions. There wasn't excess backing up. Like, he dug a perfectly level hole the whole time he was digging into the face. I mean, it was awesome watching that guy work. Nick, 100%. That was definitely the stuck, and I was damn proud of it. Like, that was fantastic that I was able to bury that sucker, and it didn't take any time either. Like, I was driving along, my front wheels, I don't remember if there was like a crust over the top of it or what was going on, but my front wheels didn't even really sink that much. But as soon as my rear wheels, my duals went over it, I was just like, whomp. It was like, okay, we're done here. I didn't even try to get out because I knew it wasn't going anywhere. And sure enough, I buried her up to the axle. So that was a good one. So 10 weeks, 12 weeks. So, okay, so not a full year, but so to go back to my math problem there, you're not going to make 50 grand in 3 months, obviously, but that is $20,000 less that you've spent. You're not starting your career in the hole. And you're actually learning real job site experience. Like I talked about earlier, I started my first day as a laborer down in a hole, hooking up a water lead and a sewer lead. Like, that's practical job site experience on how to do that. And then I had to use a grade rod and figure out how to come uphill at, you know, whatever percentage we were running. I had no idea what I was doing. You hit the ground running in those situations, and you learn so much information so quickly. You just don't really get that in a school setting like you do out on the job. And that's why I'd really like to see these trade schools kind of shift away from the classroom. Like, let's talk about these things in the book and then we'll go run a machine for 3 days. That's nice and all, but what I would love to see it shift over to is, okay, we're going to spend our classroom time talking about road building. Here's the process. Here's what we need to do. And then we're going to go out there and you get 1 day to run the machine and get comfortable on the machine. And then on day 2, I want you, so like, for instance, a dozer. We're going to start you on a nice level flat pad. And you're going to learn how to run that dozer. That's day 1. Day 2 is, I'm going to turn that flat pad into a minefield. And you need to make it flat by the end of the day. Go figure it out. And I'm going to be here to give you tips and pointers, and I'm going to help you with that. But it needs to be a flat pad when you're done. And then the next day, what we're going to do is, I want you to cut a slope. That's the experience I want to see the trade schools move towards, where you come out of it not just knowing how to make a dozer run, you start learning some of the skills. And I understand you're limited in time and you're not going to be able to make an expert operator, but at least giving the introductory knowledge to, okay, here's the general process of how I go and start a slope in a dozer. Here's the general process of how I would go start to dig a trench for a sewer main. Or this is the basic knowledge behind how to level a pad for myself in a skid steer where there is no level spot on the job. Like, how do you go about even starting? Those are really the skills I would love to see them start teaching in the trade schools. And right now you don't have a ton of operators running those programs, unfortunately. Thanks, AP. I really appreciate that compliment. I hearing you guys say that, like, obviously there's the ego part. It's like, yeah, but really there's so much content on the internet. I'm really grateful that you guys choose to watch my stuff. It really means a lot to me to have that kind of support and you guys backing me, and that really pumps me up to actually go continue to put more videos out and sink more of my time and resources into this. That really drives me forward, so I really do appreciate that. James, I'm sorry I'm so far in the comments. I'm sure you're gone by now, but thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. So Nick is a fan of the Hitachi excavators. So I will say this on the Volvo loaders. They look like really nice machines. I have yet to run a Volvo loader. I want to. I've been wanting to. Same on the excavators. I've never run a Volvo excavator. And a lot of guys swear by them. I will say on the dealership side, most mechanics I worked with or came into contact with did not like Volvo excavators. They said they were pretty cheaply built, but every operator absolutely loved them. So my translation to that is, my theory is that they've skimped on some components, but put a really nice cab on it and made it nice for the operator. But I don't want to go too far down that path, because I always think about Chris and the fact that he is like diehard Volvo, and I'm like, I respect Chris over there on Let's Dig, because like, if anyone's going to know an excavator, it's going to be Chris. So I don't want to poo-poo on the Volvo too bad. But loaders, I hear nothing but nice things about Volvo loaders. So I've been real curious. I am going to fight you on the dozer. I'm going to tell you right now, some of the two top pushers in my book is the Cat D6T. So I'll agree with you on Cat. Go jump in a 2050M case and tell me how that pushes. Case dozers, and I came into case not having any case experience. I had always run Komatsu and Caterpillar dozers, and then I jumped in a case for the first time. And those suckers, I don't know if it's the balance or what, case dozers frickin' push. It is amazing to see what those things will move. And so all that to say, if you get a chance, either a 1650 or a 2050M dozer, those two dozers, they are absolute tanks. So Little Sketchers, that is a hard freaking question, and I'll tell you why. What are you wanting to do with your business? So if you're wanting to start small, doing like small residential stuff like sewer lead repair, water line repair, sump repair, stuff like that, I would highly encourage you to get a little mini excavator that's got a blade on it. And that way you only need one machine. You can backfill with the same machine that you're throwing the material with. You don't have to invest in much else. But that being said, if you're doing a lot more grade work, you might go with a skid steer. If you're doing retaining walls and stuff like that, you're probably going to want to, if you can't afford two machines, you're probably going to want to buy your skid, and you may want to rent a mini when you need it. Take it a step further, maybe you want to get straight into basement digging. Well, you have to think about kind of your whole workflow, but you're going to need a dump truck, a triaxle trailer, and then you're going to need probably a 15-ton size excavator. And that would get you started. But then you kind of have to think about, are you going to handle the backfill on the basement? Because if you handle the backfill, now you're going to need to probably bring in a dozer, because it's not really, like, you can throw it back in with the excavator, but it's not practical. It's going to be pretty time consuming. So that one's a hard one to answer without knowing really kind of what your core focus will be. You know, another thing that we were discussing earlier is maybe you want to get into mulching and forestry stuff. Okay, well, now you're going to talk maybe a track CTL, a track skid steer with a forestry head on it. It really just depends on what you're going to go into. Nick, that's awesome that your school was doing that. I really wish more trade schools would do that. I think the industry's slowly going to force that. It's just going to be a super, super slow change until it's not even the educators, because like I said, I talked to a guy out in Utah that is an educator, and he's wanting to do more of that stuff. But the problem is the administration side doesn't understand what it requires. So this guy was talking that they've got this like 5-foot deep pad of millings, and the school was very specific that they didn't want any of the students digging down past the millings. And it's like, well, how can you teach guys to properly, truly bench a hole if you can't go over 5 feet deep? Like, that's not realistic. You've got to be able to really get into the dirt in order to teach guys how to work in the dirt. So anyway, all that to say, it's not the educators. A lot of times it's the curriculum and the administrators behind it. So Nick, those 621, what did you think of the 621? Because I like the case loaders personally. My only complaint is they don't have enough ass. There's not enough counterweight in them. They tend to lift up a little bit easier than some of the other loaders. But that being said, it's got a real transmission. It's not hydrostatic. Really nice cab on it. And I love that they've flipped the engine around and the cooling package is up on top of the machine instead of at the rear. I think that is a genius design. They just need to fatten up that counterweight a little bit more. The engineers had the right idea that the engine was going to be to the back and act a little more like a counterweight, but then they kind of skimped a little too far on the counterweight. That's my only big complaint. So Peyton, I would say it is easier to learn on bigger equipment, but it's not worth it to learn on the bigger equipment. For instance, dozers, it is significantly easier to grade on a larger dozer because you have a much longer track base. And so if I create a little hoopty with my blade, with a smaller dozer, you're going to feel that. Your tracks are short and you're going to ride into it. In a big dozer, your tracks are so freaking long, you're just going to go straight over top of it. So while it is easier to learn in larger equipment, it is much better served to learn on smaller equipment, because then you have the really fast reaction times. You have those skills already built into your hands and into your seat. I talk about your ass level all the time in a dozer. You've got all that knowledge there. That way, when you translate up to the big machines, let's say you're grading at half speed in a D3, you get into a D6, now you're blazing at almost top speed. Like, you can be super, super productive because you're really accurate, because you got all of that seat time in the small machines. Versus flip it around, you think you're, king dingling on the D6 because you can grade so smooth, and then you get on a job where they've only got a D3 or a D4 out there, and all of a sudden you look like it's your first day and you're grading super, super slow because you're not used to it. So yeah, I would highly encourage you learn on the small stuff, but it is far easier in the big machines. And Nick I should have read one line down, Nick. You totally nailed it. Small, I would say a D3, man. If you can get on a D3, that'll kick your butt. If you think you're good at finish grading, get on a D3 and be humbled. Prepare to be humbled. A D3 is a freaking difficult machine to finish grade on because your track base is so freaking small. Little sketchers. It depends on what you're doing. If you're mostly going to be in the dirt and the mud, go tracks. It gives you lower ground pressure. It tears up the yard less. It gives you a higher lift capacity. Like, there are a ton of advantages. But if you're going to be doing anything on asphalt or concrete, go with wheels. It is the concrete and asphalt chews through tracks like nobody's business. You need to be doing 3 or 4 or 5 point turns instead of just doing 360s when possible, because it really eats through your tracks pretty good. So, but in all other applications, I would highly recommend you go with a track machine. Cali boy, appreciate it, man. I really do. I'm hoping to come out your direction some point in time and work with some of you guys out in California. Believe it or not, I have never been to California. Been dying to come to California and see some of those big job sites and maybe run some machines with you guys. So I appreciate the support, man. Nick, 100%. Oh, little sketchers. I am from Howell, so I'm 45 minutes from you guys. My big company I cut my teeth with was Dan's Excavating out over there out of Shelby Township. So yeah, Peyton, it's just one of those things where if the opportunity presents itself, obviously jump on it, volunteer for it, because it's a really good experience. But at the same time, if D6 is, I will say this, if you're on a K series, you've already experienced some of the difficulty of grading in a super hypersensitive dozer. In my opinion, the K series were some of the hardest dozers to grade with, because the hydraulics, even at their slowest settings, were really, really jittery and really fast. And so it definitely takes a lot of skill to be able to operate that blade. And then you throw in the aspect that they were the first machine I ran that was electronic over hydraulic controls, and you take that feel out of the blade. The first time I sat down in one of those K series was a real eye-opener to me, and I was pretty decent on a D3. So don't beat yourself up about it. You work with the tools you're given. In fact, I would say that more than anything, because we're operators. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what color paint's on the dozer. It doesn't matter what size it is. You need to be able to jump in that machine and make it perform. And so you just kind of work with the tools you're given. Peyton, those 850s, 100%. Those are solid dozers. I will say I ran a 700 and I was not impressed with it. I want to say that was a 700K. And I was not super impressed with that one. It did not have the balls that the Cat did or the case. But it was a solid, you know, once you get over that 700, the 750 and the 850 were definitely solid dozers. Let's see here. Nick, I agree with you. Those K series, they were difficult to grade with. Skechers, I would say if you want to go truly learning the most, go private, go with a small company and get on the end of a shovel. That's 100% the truth. You're going to learn way more at a smaller company because they're going to bounce you between pieces of equipment. They're going to bounce you on the shovel. You're going to be learning both the laboring aspect plus the equipment. And you're not just one piece of equipment. A lot of times, like I had to go get my CDL. I was running dozer, excavator, skid steer, mini excavator. Like you're wearing all hats. One day you're digging a basement. Next day you're doing a sewer repair. Next day you're over here digging a septic field. Next day you're over here finish grading a lot. So versus Union's going to put you on a machine, put you on a big job, and you're going to sit on a roller for a season or something. AP, I don't know what license you're speaking of. If you're talking heavy equipment, we don't have to be licensed over here. You can jump on a piece of iron tomorrow and you don't have to have anything to do that. If you're talking like a CDL, I want to say it's every 4 years you have to renew. I could be wrong on that. So give me just a second. I'm going to be right back, guys, and then we are going to start wrapping this up. So go ahead and get any last questions in. I'm going to be right back. I'll come back and kind of work through those list of questions, and then we will take off. So I'll be right back with you. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I had to refill the water. It's freaking hot in here. Okay, let me get caught up here. So we were at, Skechers. Want to own your own excavation business. So yeah, that's a great start. So working at a rental barn and being able to kind of go out there and play. I don't know if you're able to dig in the dirt at all, but that's a great way to start. And I would highly recommend going. Spend 2 or 3 years at a small company. In all honesty, spend 2 or 3 years at a small company. Really get a solid foundation under you before you start to venture out and do something on your own. Excuse me. And even there's nothing wrong with renting some machines in the beginning. You know, start taking on some small projects. Being a young guy that you don't have a ton of overhead, take on some small projects where you just have to rent a skid for the day or rent a skid for a week, and all you have to focus on is owning a truck and a trailer. You know, that's a great way to start small, kind of build on that, get another guy working with you that you can kind of help out, take on some bigger projects, maybe rent a mini from time to time when you need it. You know, work on getting your first skid purchase. There's just kind of ease into it. The quickest way to get yourself into some trouble is to get in too deep with your financing a truck and a trailer and a skid steer and an excavator. And as long as work keeps flowing in, you can keep the whole thing afloat. But the second something happens, the whole thing kind of tanks under. The best way to get into it and to slowly progress is exactly that. Nice and slow, take baby steps and kind of go at it that way. That's interesting, Nick. I didn't realize that Volvo had the biggest lift capacity. That is interesting. I really want to get in one of those Volvo loaders. They're nice equipment. Yeah, so AP, it is not that way in the States. Now, I will say, if you are on a prevailing wage job in a union state, and it is not a right to work state, so we have the unions here, and the way that works is, if it's a right to work state, you don't have to be in the union. You're going to catch a lot of flack for not being in the union, but you don't have to be in the union to get on the equipment. If you are in a state that is not right to work, and it is a truly union state, which Michigan was up until 4 or 5 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, you would absolutely get kicked off the job site for not having your union card. But that's a union card. It's not a license to operate. It's a license to operate in the union on union jobs. So, but as far as just being able to run the machines, no, you can go jump on an excavator or a loader whenever you want here in the States, and there are no legal repercussions for that. Thanks, Little Sketchers. I really appreciate that, man. I really do. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, both via YouTube or I'll say my email again for everybody, thatdiggerdude@gmail.com. Don't hesitate to shoot me an email, whatever I can do. If you need a video on a specific topic, let me know, and I'll see if I can't put out a video for you to help you out. MX Life, let me know if what I just kind of went through for Little Sketchers helped you out. If not, if you got more specific questions, don't hesitate to ask. And if I don't know some answers, one of my goals at some point in time here is to get my buddy Rick, which you've seen on a lot of videos in the past. He owns his own company, and I'd like to get him on here and kind of talk down the road of starting your own business. And then, believe it or not, my sister that lives down in Texas is a controller for a company, so she does all of the accounting and tax stuff for a construction company. And at some point in time, I'd like to get her on the channel as well to kind of answer some more technical business questions for some of you guys that already own your company. So, Little Sketchers, I'm gonna say this, and I mean this with the utmost respect, and I'm not calling you out by any means, and I'm not saying you are this way. Dude, it's awesome that you have that knowledge base, and that's fantastic, and everybody in here in this whole forum here is proud of you. Just make sure you don't get too cocky and too arrogant. Always stay humble. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you in this industry. Stay very humble. It's always better to go on a job and undersell yourself and then overperform, because the second you oversell and underperform, you've got that stigma of being the guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. And again, I'm not saying that you're doing that, but that's one of the biggest pieces of advice, especially being young, because there is such a stigma, unfortunately, is just stay humble, man. But no, that's awesome that you're taking that big of an interest at this age to be prepared when you are 18 to be able to jump out in that workforce and really have a good foundation of what you need to know. Dude, that's awesome. Keep at it. So Nick, I tell you what, if you will shoot me an email, don't email the file, it's going to be way too big. Shoot me an email with your email address, so thatdiggerdude@gmail.com. And what I'll do is I will send you a link to my Dropbox, and you can put it on the Dropbox, and then I will get that up as quick as I can. I'll actually bump some of my videos and get you some snow footage up. So, and I appreciate the footage, by the way. And with any of you guys, if you want to have your footage featured, and if you give me some different angles, I'll even edit some different angles and everything together for you. But yeah, I got no problem featuring your footage. I have no issue doing that. So Little Sketchers, that's another great advantage of going with a smaller company, is you can actually have them pay for you to get your CDL. So the process works a lot like when you learn to drive your regular car. You would go in, take your paper test to get your learner's permit, and then from there you can have a certified, already licensed CDL driver train you, and you'll have a permit just like you did when you were 16. And then, or 15, whenever that was. It's been so long, I don't remember. And then when you go for your legit driving test, you'll pay a fee for that. But instead of you driving or paying to go to a truck driving school, you can have that sponsored through your employer if they're willing to train you. And that's a conversation you can easily have up front with them. And in all honesty, a lot of smaller companies will love the fact that you want to get your CDL. Hey Phil, thanks for dropping in, man. So what, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon? Enjoy your afternoon, buddy. I appreciate you, Phil. I appreciate you popping in again. So if you're brand new, Tristan, if you're brand new to the industry, which by the way, guys, I hate to cut this off because we're really rocking here. Let's do another 15 minutes. It is 9:30 my time. Let's try to wrap this up by 9:45. I hate to do it to you, but at the same time, it's getting late. My wife is waiting for me to watch a show. You know, there's just that aspect. So to go back here, Tristan, if you're brand new, if you are brand new to the industry, I would highly encourage you to start out as a laborer. It's going to be easier to get hired in, and guys are going to be a lot more forgiving. And more importantly, you're going to get a lot more valuable experience on the end of a shovel initially than you will in the machine, because you'll find that when you do start running equipment, you get overwhelmed very quickly. Like all of the sudden, not only are you trying to learn the flow of the job and what the process is and where you need to be and where you need to get material from, but you're also trying to throw into the mix learning how to run that piece of equipment. It is very overwhelming at first, versus it's a little slower pace when you're a laborer. It's obviously more physical work, but it's a slower pace, and it really lets you get a lot of valuable knowledge about the process, so that when you do get in the seat of that piece of equipment, you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. You just need to worry about how to run the piece of equipment, and then you're off to the races. So that's kind of what I would recommend for you. Little Sketchers, I do not own my own company. I had a landscape company for a while down in Texas. 100% full disclosure, it did fail. That was one of the best educations I have ever gotten, was starting my own company. But no, I do not own, I should say, I don't own my own dirt company. I own a company that diesel and iron. So apart from the YouTube stuff, I actually do some video production stuff. And so I do own a small company that's just myself as an employee for that, but I don't own a dirt company, which is why I want to have my buddy on. If you go through some of my vlogs a little further back, Rick, the guy that I was working with, is my friend that owns a dirt company, and I want to have him on to talk specifically to guys like yourself that have questions about starting a business. Octavio, I appreciate you dropping in, man. Hope to see you on some future ones. I really appreciate the support, all the kind words. Means a lot, man. Cody, that's awesome. Congratulations. I'm assuming you just completed that course because of the way you worded that, but I could be wrong. Oh, maybe not. Maybe you're putting it in there. So yeah, that's awesome. So 19,000 Canadian, that's real affordable. That's really affordable. So Cody, the biggest thing is, how prepared did you feel coming out of that course? That's the big question I've been asking guys that have cycled through. Nick, appreciate you popping in, man. We'll see you on the next one, hopefully. 2:30 a.m. AP, go to bed, man. I appreciate the support and I appreciate you staying up with me, but for God's sakes, go to bed. Man, that makes me tired just thinking about it. MX Life, where are you at? It's 9. Oh, you got to be. No, never mind. Never mind. That's 9:30 p.m. You're good. So you're on my time zone. Cody, 100%. No one is above the shovel. I made a whole video on that. No one is above the shovel. Even veteran operators, I rag on them. You need to get out of the seat and help out sometimes. You know, the laborer is struggling and he doesn't have anyone to help him out. Get out of the seat and get down there and help out. No one's above the shovel. So Little Sketchers, let me talk to my buddy Rick, and maybe in the next couple of weeks. I doubt it's going to be next. In fact, it won't be next weekend for sure. But hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, I will see if I can't get him on, and I can have him here beside me. I'll pull the camera back so you can see a little better and get the two of us, and maybe we can do a live Q&A. Ooh, voice cracking, baby, that's bad. But maybe we can do a live Q&A with him. Yeah, so let me ask you this, Cody. Seat time and getting comfortable making the machines move is one thing. How comfortable and confident did you feel when you hit your first job site as far as knowing what the process was, what was going on, where you needed to be, where you were at in the process? That's kind of what I'm trying to get a feel for, is how much are they teaching about the work versus just teaching you how to pull levers and sticks. And this is good. We're starting to trickle down now, and I didn't want to cut it off at full steam here, so we got about 10 minutes left. In fact, let's see how many of you guys are still watching here. I still got 13 of you guys in here. That's good. 14. Yeah, we're still doing all right. So yeah, we're still waiting for Cody's response, because it takes like a minute for the full thing to cycle from me to you back to me. That's a lot of downtime. This is beginning to get uncomfortable. AP, I really appreciate you tuning in, man. I really appreciate the support, and the fact that you're in Scotland is still freaking awesome to me. That's awesome. So I really appreciate you. So go get you some sleep. We'll catch you on the next one. Besides that, we only got 10 minutes left. You can watch it tomorrow morning. Oh, okay, I'm with you, Cody. Gotcha. Okay, so it'll be interesting. So do me a favor. I actually want to lean on you a little bit. When you do finally get into the workforce and you spend your first, get into it, get a week or two under your belt, but let me know how equipped and how prepared you felt, because I would really appreciate that kind of feedback. That's the sort of stuff, as this channel kind of gains momentum and steam, one of my goals is to kind of start talking to the education side, to the educators. And I would like to try to revamp some of these programs and get them a little more focused on the work as opposed to the stick pulling. Thanks, Alan, Noah. You guys have a good night. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And let me know if you guys have any other video ideas or questions for me. And we'll catch you guys soon. Little Sketchers. Honestly, a basement digging company in this area, because you get the grading aspect as well. So generally the way that it works is your company is responsible for the basement dig, the backfill, and then the finished grade on the lot. So you get the basement digging experience. On top of that, you then flip over into rough grading experience, because you go into a lot that's got dirt piles and a hole with a basement walls in it, and you get the experience of rough grading. Plus you get the fact, So when you backfill a basement, I've got a video on my channel somewhere that's specifically about backfilling basements. You can't just blow dirt in, or you will knock down a basement wall and you'll cost your company, 20 grand worth of damage. So what you learn is how to finesse dirt down into a hole and do it where you keep that, dirt rolling down at an angle and it's hitting the walls softly. So you learn stuff like that, and then you flip over and you get to learn fine grading. And when you fine grade a lot, it's a fine grade. We had control points down each side of the lot, and you had to be within half a tenth. I think it was half a tenth on those control points in order for it to pass. So you learn how to fine grade on a dozer, and you learn how to fine grade in a skid steer, and so you're learning how to take a skid steer that's sitting flat or sitting at this angle, and you've got to shape that dirt and get your tracks lined up so that you're actually shaping at the contour that you want. You really learn how to run the equipment. So I would actually highly encourage you to go with a basement digging company that does the full deal. Geodude, I appreciate that. Let me know if you got any questions that I can answer for you. Cody, that's great. I love it when programs actually have guys with experience teaching. That's one of my, and I should get better about this, because there are guys that don't have true industry experience that still do a good job. But that is one of my big eye roll points, is when I hear about a program that has no real job site experience from guys teaching, because then it's all book knowledge, and it's like I was talking about earlier. There's like, from safety, there's practical safety, and then there's your 10 and 2. You got to hold your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2 safety stuff. And so to have guys that don't have any industry experience, that's really detrimental to those programs, and it doesn't serve the students well. I don't know Zeph Concrete offhand. I've heard the name, but that's only because I worked at an equipment dealership, and I'm sure it is tossed around the office at one point in time, but no, I'm not super familiar with them. AP, that's why I enjoy watching, Danish Construction Channel, Norwegian Earth Movers. There's a couple other guys that I really enjoy watching over in your neck of the woods, just because, yeah, it is so vastly different, even in the types of materials you guys get into. Like, you guys get into materials that I've never seen over here in the States. So yeah, it's interesting. And see, that's where, so for you guys can take my word for what it's worth, but I've never went through a trade school program, and I can't speak specifically to the trade school program that you're looking into. But I mean, this is what's happening between Josh and Cody right now is exactly what I want for this channel. For you guys to kind of become the resource for yourselves is fantastic. So Cody's saying that it's totally worth the value. Josh, go look into it, man. I mean, if you got someone who's been through the program telling you that it's worth it, don't discount it. Don't take my word for it, because I am not an expert by any means, especially when it comes to trade school courses. So yeah, take a look into it. So we are at the end of our time, guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Yep, Little Sketchers just called it, and that's it. We're at our time. So I really appreciate all of you guys hanging out. We will do this again next Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If I have something weird come up in my schedule, I'll let you guys know the week beforehand. Otherwise, we will do this every Sunday night. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out. You guys have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next one. As always, by the way, I'm going to flip over to the end screen and leave it up for 5 minutes or so if you guys got more questions or things you want to throw up in the chat. But yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next video, and thanks for hanging out.